And it's the 21st of Feb pre-release for the upcoming beta. Now, what does the feature do? Let me just show you. So I've got a Power BI report open, and this is a thin report. It doesn't have a data set embedded. It's got a live connection. Traditionally, when working with pbi-tools, you had a fairly back and forth and iterative workflow where you basically made changes in your reports, and then you had to go back to your command line, explicitly run an extract command in order to get all your changes extracted and put into your Git repo. Quite involved, quite a bit of back and forth, and also relatively complicated to integrate into your development flow. Now, this is there's a new option now which basically automates that. So I've got this report open, and rather than explicitly running an extract command, what I can do, I can run pbi-tools extract in watch mode, which is what I'm going to show you. So I've got a shell open in the folder containing my pbix file. Running pbi-tools info gives me information about my current PBI desktop sessions. So you can see I've got 2 sessions of Power BI desktop open. One of them AdventureWorks. We're going to look into this in a second. The other one is report 1, the one I want to capture now. The watch mode currently works by you looking up the process ID for the Power BI desktop process you want to tackle. So this, in this case, is 12368. You then run pbi-tools extract-PID for process ID, put that number in there, 12368. And then you do -watch, and that one does pbi-tools extract, which takes a PBIX file and pulls all the sources out, but does it in an automated fashion whenever the file is saved. So if I basically start that now, it's telling me it's watching this particular file, which happens to be open in Power BI desktop. It's also connected to the corresponding local analysis services instance, and it's now watching and waiting for me pressing the save button. So if I go in here, and as you can see, my working directory doesn't have any sources extracted, and simply click save, and also make this slightly smaller, you can see stuff is actually happening automatically. And I've got my report 1 subfolder here, which contains all sources for that particular PBIX file. If I go and open an additional, well, actually, if I then go in here and basically just commit all of those changes and say just init report 1 in this particular case, I've basically established my baseline. This is the report as I had it when I started working on it. That's in my Git repo now. If I now go back in here and start making small changes, small incremental changes, and occasionally press save in between, I'm going to get all the benefits from this feature, because not only will they be extracted immediately, but because of Git integration, I'll actually get a diff showing up straight away. So even something like changing a slicer setting like so, if I click save now, we can see extract is kicking off. If I then go into my Git view, there we go. I can see that there's literally one single change. The slicer setting from 2008 previously changed to 2009. There's also another metadata change here, which is basically my project file. That one always updates whenever I do a new extract. Doesn't really matter, but I can see in a very granular way the one change I've made. Not only do I have it available as a diff, but I can immediately see what's actually changed behind the scenes. So I can go in here and say changed slicer settings, for instance, and obviously spelling is always appreciated. And now I'm back. My latest changes are committed. I'm back to a clean stage, and I can make some more substantial changes. For instance, I could duplicate this entire page and rename it, and let's call it sales by month 2. If I now go and click save, obviously we're expecting a much larger number of files coming through here, because all sources representing this particular section are now basically duplicated, and I can see that very nicely. This is the section file. A section is the internal technical name representing a page. We can see the display name is sales by month 2. There's the technical name, which also happens to show up in the URL. I can see the page level config, which is empty. I can see page level filters, which are empty. And I can see all the visuals, which were duplicated. I can also see my report level config has one additional change, which is basically a metadata section representing this particular page. So if I now say, so let's call it duplicated page, and commit everything, I've got that in place. So that's pretty much the gist of it when it comes to reports. Various advantages here from my point of view. First of all, once again, what was necessary previously in you running back and forth and actually rerunning the extract command line, for instance, is no longer necessary. But the other thing is also really important in terms of workflow and actually getting the real advantage when it comes to source control, which is, and I've seen that in practice actually a lot, because obviously in my workplace, in my team, we've been using pbi-tools based workflows for several years now. When it comes to visual changes in reports, you usually accrue quite a lot of diffs. You usually accrue a lot of files which have changed, which have been added, which have been modified. And if you don't commit frequently, if you basically work on a report for an entire day, make a whole bunch of changes, and then go in and do an extract, you're going to be overwhelmed. You're going to have hundreds of files changed, which basically leaves you no option but to commit all of them, where you really struggle to actually put a meaningful commit message in there, and where you really struggle to actually replicate in your code the changes you've made. The advantage you've got here is that you can adopt a workflow where you focus on one particular change. Let's say you add a new visual, or you change some fields. So let's say on this one, I wanted to change the let's change the value font size, right? Let's say that was your requirement. You can make that one change. When you're done with it, you click save. You know exactly what the corresponding code changes are, and you immediately commit it in the same way as I've done it just now. If you then go into your Git history, you actually have a very meaningful history there without having to worry about what particular change pertains what particular change in the code pertains to what change in the in the report itself. So this would be matrix value font size increased. Here we go. If I don't commit that. And that, from my point of view, makes the fact that we now have report sources in place even more meaningful. So that's what we have as far as reports are concerned. The same feature very nicely works for datasets as well. If I now go here, I'm going to get a bunch of changes, way more, because obviously there's an entire data model in here. Looking at this in folder view, we can see we've got model with our table, with our queries. There's also a report here, but actually only with one single page at this point. So I'm just going to do the same thing here. All right, so I've added a measure, same thing now. Let's click save. And what happens? Here we go, very straightforward, right? Measures are currently extracted with two files. We've got an XML file which contains metadata, and then we've got a separate file which explicitly contains the DAX formula for readability, and that's it. Very clean, very straightforward, and something I can very nicely work with. Again, you know, incrementally, iteratively making changes to my model in this case, knowing exactly what the impact of the change was in terms of the underlying code, and then being able to commit it straight away. So if I then say added number of customers and confirm, we're back to a clean Git repo. And that's pretty much what I wanted to show in terms of that's available. It's brand new. I've explicitly put it out as a pre-release because it could definitely do with some thorough testing, and so definitely invite everyone who's interested or who ideally who has worked with pbi-tools before to give that a go and provide some feedback. So final comment on this, because obviously before people wonder, how do I get out of this watch mode? There are two ways of getting out. First of all, you can click Control-C explicitly, or the other way, very straightforward. Once you close the corresponding session, it will automatically finish. So it actually sees, it knows that Power BI Desktop or this particular session is no longer running, so it's automatically stopping.